Delhi Sultan Iltutmish had many sons, but as all of them were incompetent, he appointed his daughter Razia as his successor. Objections were raised to his choice, and the reply of Iltutmish was, "My sons are devoted to the pleasures of youth, and no one of them is qualified to be a king. They are unfit to rule the country, and after my death you will find that there is no one more competent to guide the state than my daughter." In spite of this, when Iltutmish died, the nobles of the court of Delhi, who considered themselves to be too proud to bow their heads before a woman, put on the throne Rukunuddin Firod Shah, who was the eldest son of Iltutmish. Before becoming king, Rukunuddin had been in charge of the government of Badaun and Lahore. Experience showed that Rukunuddin was an utterly worthless fellow. He spent most of his time in the satisfaction of his thirst and neglected altogether the work of the government. He took pleasure in riding through the streets of Delhi on an elephant and scattering gold among the people. Buffoons and fiddlers were his companions. He has rightly been called a pleasure loving fellow. After the death of Rukunuddin Firod Shah, Sultana Razia was put to the throne. Considering the time and general outlook of the Muslim people, chiefly on the military and religious classes, the selection of Razia was unique and most daring. Although her reign lasted for 3 years and a half, yet its significance cannot be measured by them. At least, it indicates the freshness and robustness of the Turkish mind in the 13th century, which was then seemed to be capable of taking of such a bold step and trying such an experiment. Razia had remarkable talents. According to Minhas Siraj, she was a great sovereign, sagacious, just, beneficent, the patron of the learned, a dispenser of justice, the cherisher of her subjects and of warlike talent, and was endowed with all the admirable attributes and qualifications necessary for kings. She marched in person against her enemies. She put aside her dress as a woman. She gave a veil and donned the tunic and assumed the headdress of a man. She conducted the affairs of the state with considerable ability in open darbar. She tried to play the king in all possible ways. In spite of all this, her rule ended after a brief period of 3 years and a half for the simple reason that she was a woman. The throne, which was ascended by Sultana Razia, was not a bed of roses. The governors of Multan, Badaun, Hasi, and Lahore openly revolted against her. Wazir Mahmud Junaidi and some other nobles refused to reconcile themselves to have a woman as their ruler. For some time, Razia was able to create dissensions among the rebel governors and nobles. Wazir Junaidi was defeated and he retired and died. She was also able to win over some Muslim nobles to her side. Razia Sultan had one single weakness. It was her relationship with her Abyssinian slave Jamaluddin Yakut, which marked an unprecedented chapter where a ruler openly acknowledged a deep emotional bond with a slave. Yakut, the Abyssinian slave of Razia Sultan, was a remarkable figure in the 13th century Delhi Sultanate, known not only for his servitude but also for his extraordinary influence and significance in the court of Razia. Originally hailing from Abyssinia, Yakut's journey to Delhi marked the beginning of an extraordinary chapter in Indian history. Yakut's story began when he was brought to the Delhi Sultanate as a young boy. Over the years, he was raised to the post of the master of the stables. Yakut not only gained the trust of Razia Sultan but also became her confidant advisor, and close companion. His loyalty and wisdom set him apart in a complex and often treacherous political landscape. Yakut's rise to prominence was notable not just because of his slave status but also due to the emotional bond he shared with Razia. Yakut played a crucial role in shaping her policies and decisions, including her emphasis on religious tolerance and the welfare of her subjects. His influence extended to military matters and political decision making, making him an essential part of her inner circle. However, the gender and class barriers Razia and Yakut defied eventually became their downfall. According to the contemporary writer Farista, when the queen rode, Yakut always lifted her on the horse by raising her up under the arms. Their bond raised eyebrows and attracted opposition from conservative quarters. The nobility, uncomfortable with a woman on the throne and a slave exerting considerable power and worldly influence, eventually led to the downfall of Razia's reign. Razia Sultan and her Abyssinian slave Yakut left an indelible mark on Indian history. Their legacy continues to captivate historians and enthusiasts alike. Their story serves as a testament to the power of love, loyalty, and the courage to challenge social norms. Though their rule was short lived, it continues to be celebrated as a symbol of defiance against the convention of their time. The nobles became jealous of Yakut and turned against Razia. There were simultaneous revolts in the various parts of the kingdom. The governor of Lahore was the first to create trouble, but he was defeated by Razia. There was a serious rebellion in Bhatinda. Malik Ikhtiaruddin Altunia, governor of Bhatinda, refused to acknowledge the suzerainty of Razia. No wonder Razia, accompanied by Yakut, marched against Altunia. On the way, the Turkish followers of Altunia murdered Yakut and imprisoned Razia. She was placed in charge of Altunia, and her brother Bahram was proclaimed the Sultan of Delhi. Razia felt that the only way out of the difficulties was to marry Altunia, and she did accordingly. After that, the newly married couple marched towards Delhi. When she reached near Kaithal, she was deserted by the followers of Altunia. On 13 October 1240, she was defeated by Bahram. On the next day, she was put to death along with her husband. Thus ended the brilliant career of a young lady who was gave promise of greatness. She was endowed with all the qualities befitting a king, but she was not born of the right sex, and so, in the estimation of men, all these virtues were worthless. Razia Sultan, the fascinating historical figure of the 13th century, was a remarkable exception in a male dominated world. She shattered gender stereotypes and became the first and only female ruler of the Delhi Sultanate. Razia's reign, which lasted from 1236 to 1240, is remembered for its brief but impactful presence in the annals of Indian history.